actually had this idea when I was in college, like, wouldn't it be great to grow old with your friends on a piece of property, and everybody had their own little cabin, and there was a great house that you would gather in and have meals, and doesn't that sound like fun? In 2004, I Googled senior co-housing and actually was shocked that I found some things, because I thought, of course, I was the first person who thought about it.
Co-housing is more or less an old-fashioned notion of how people can live together in a village-like, community-like setting where people know each other, care about each other, and support each other.
I was looking and exploring for different types of home situations for my father and came upon co-housing, and I thought, gee, that's a really unique but great idea about being able to live in community and be able to have neighbors that help neighbors and know each other.
Too many seniors are isolated. Too often having the single-family house that was more than appropriate when they were raising several children, not appropriate when 70, 80 years old, or even 65, where the house becomes not only a burden cost-wise, but also a burden at every other level.
We retired to Truckee, California. It was a winter when there was extraordinary amounts of snow. When a friend mentioned that there was this presentation going to be happening in Truckee about co-housing, which I'd never really heard of before.
We had a big house and lots of property that was going to mean a lot of work. We just felt like it was time for a next step, that we needed to be active and closer to people.
My husband was in hospice. And my daughter came to visit me to see her dad once more. And then we saw in the paper and advertising that Katie McCamant was giving a presentation about co-housing. And I had never heard of it before. And we both said, let's go. So we went to the presentation. So when it was finished, we said, Mom, that is the perfect thing, totally the perfect thing for you. And I said, I think so too.
Katie McCamant and I do a 2-day workshop called Getting It Built. And it basically takes 50 strangers and puts the tools in their tool belts that help them see the possibility for organizing a co-housing community. Very much around finances, it's a big part of it. How to get your money in and how to get your money out. And I'd say about 50% of the time it is the group who buys the land. And 50% of the time it's somebody like Katie or I or some other developer.
Co-housing communities evolve over time. It isn't like all at one fell swoop 30 households come together and go, yes. It's iterative. You might have 6 initially, and then 2 more, and then 1 more. And sometimes a project may not even 100% sell out till people have moved in and there's 2 or 3 units left over.
There's always vacancies that they need to fill, and that's where people like me come in, who are willing to pay a slightly higher price to buy in once it's completed.
They're typically legally constructed as a condo, so there's an HOA, and the community decides what that HOA fee will be and what it will cover. So you're maintaining control, which again I think is a very important part of aging.
The residences are typically universal design where you don't have any issues with mobility. You have walk-in showers. You have countertops at the right level so that you can continue with the day-to-day chores, bathing, eating, getting around in a way that you're not going to have to leave your home if you suddenly have any mobility issues.
The design of the place, which when you think about it are really restrictions, like having the parking lot that you have to park in close to your house, except for unusual circumstances. But that's done on purpose so that you have to walk by places to get to your own house. So you're constantly exposed to your neighbors. We're all supposed to have a front porch that you can sit on. That's one of the design criteria for the house.
We each have individual homes. They're smaller, I guess, than the average American home would be. We range here from 325 square feet on up to 1,200. Things are designed that way for a reason, so that we tend to get out of our homes more and interact more. We have the common house where we do share meals and get-togethers and parties and things like that.
The building is laid out as 2 3-story wings on either side of a common core, which is where our common house is. Common kitchen, a common eating area, which is also used as an entertainment area, as a meeting area. We have common laundry facilities. In the common house, we also have 3 guest rooms, so that individually we don't have to have an extra bedroom for those times when a guest comes.
It's really the community that says, okay, we want a gym and we want a library and we want a multi-purpose space and we want a meditation room.
At the same time, and probably just as important as doing that, is really starting to coalesce as a group. As people kind of enter into the idea of, okay, there's a group of people that want to live in community and create a co-housing community.
When we first came, we had dinner with a couple of the families that lived here already. We tried to spend as much time with them as we could. Elderberry requires that you visit 3 times before you can join. And you have to attend 1 business meeting, maybe 2, which is a frightful experience for a new person.
Everybody believes that their own life will be more convenient, more practical, more economical, more interesting, more fun, more healthy, if they give cooperation the benefit of the doubt.
Getting along with 25, 30 other people, it's not necessarily easy, but it's worthwhile.
I hardly ever do a public presentation when somebody doesn't ask me, hey Chuck, what if a jerk moves into your co-housing community? Generally speaking, if you're grading against 20 people are grading against you. So it's not very sustainable. And there have been a couple people who have, rotated themselves out, let's say. Nobody would ask them to move. We don't have to, because you're just not going to be happy here.
Most people come out of a single-family home where they're used to making all the decisions themselves. In co-housing, a lot of that is taken out of your control. You have to consider the finances of the community as a whole, the individuals within the community. You have to take into account different viewpoints and perspectives that you might not want to take into account.
I would encourage anybody who's coming to a co-housing community to think about what your commitment is to work, because you can pay for things. You can pay for all the maintenance and everything else, but the other thing that co-housing tries to be is to be affordable. The more you hire out, the more your monthly assessments are going to come up.
And one of the beauties of co-housing is, instead of having to do everything, which you do if you're an individual homeowner, you get to choose. You get to pick things that are more suited to what you want to do right now.
We have different teams, and they do maintenance on the building, and they do gardening, and many different teams. And I am actually more or less excused from these teams because I'm too old. I can do some things. I can coordinate, for instance, a cook team. I come up with a recipe.
In some ways, it's a lot of work, but in other ways, it's less work. I have not changed a fuse or, done painting maintenance in 4 years here. So in the jobs that we are cooperating together, I spend less time, and I can ignore some of the jobs that I really don't like.
Most of us view common meals as an essential glue to holding the community together, because it's both a time on a cook team when you work with other people, but it's also a time when you're eating with other people to socialize and learn what's going on.
We have 2 children, adults, who are doing well in life. I hope that I can let them have their lives without anxiety about me. They are much more comfortable with this because they know that my neighbors have their phone numbers, and if there's any crises that I can't call them myself, they will be called.
None of my family lives close by. It's so nice. You have Skype, you have the email, and we had family reunions. So as long as I can do that, I do not feel so removed from my children. And they are very, very happy that I have it so good here. Many old people are very lonesome, and so I don't have that. I mean, we are so social out here. Sometimes you just have to close your door, not to be social anymore.
One of the things that we've noticed, particularly in this community, is though there are certainly people who have children, practically none of them have children nearby. So it makes it a little different because these people become your family. And when they become your family, that means that you need to take care of them, they need to take care of you.
Many co-housing communities have an extra unit or 2 that are intended to be guest units, family comes to visit, things like that. And in senior communities, it's with an eye towards having a caregiver live there ultimately.
But then the issue comes, what happens when somebody gets Alzheimer's? What happens when somebody breaks a hip? When it comes to toileting and bathing, volunteers are gone. That's hard, personal work. So the issue then becomes, what do you do in that kind of situation? There was a hope here, and I know there's a hope at other communities, that you could have a caregiver house. We began here to think about the logistics of it. We're 18 households. To devote one of those to somebody who is purely a caregiver, it didn't make sense socially, it didn't make sense economically, and we don't know how it's going to work out. We're going to have to just trust that when people need caregivers, that we'll be able to get them from the outside community. They'll come in, they'll help, we'll help each other, and it'll work somehow. I think, though, that most co-housing communities, senior co-housing communities, are beginning to also realize that you reach a point where, whether you want to believe it or not, there are going to be some people who have to leave. I think that's something that all senior co-housing communities are going to face.
We started in our church. There were a bunch of us that were closely connected. We thought that we were getting older, and so some of the people were getting pretty frail. We decided we should sort of somehow live closer together to help each other out. Our average age now is about 90, so we were 10 years ago or so, we were around 80. Some of the men, anyway, were a bit wondering if they really wanted to move into an older community. But anyway, they did, with a little help from their wives.
We didn't have any choice. We're just getting older, right? I had friends, and we wanted to be together. This kind of arrangement just sort of gradually evolved.
We'd found this place here, which is almost an acre, and we thought that we could put up 8 units here pretty well.
We didn't want to be in some great big housing development. We wanted to be with a smaller group of people.
One of the things that we did to sweeten the deal for the city council was to designate it as an affordable apartment. And there's certain requirements that the city has as to what rent we can charge and what income the person that would move in would have. We really didn't know what we wanted at first, so it was kind of open. Can you cook for 12 people? We started with 12 people. And what kind of caregiving experience do you have? Do you drive a car? You know, just kind of basic things that we started with.
Somebody that fulfilled those requirements of being low income could have the opportunity to have a wonderful place to live, people that would support them, possible job here as well, and get them on their feet. I was one of those people. I didn't have a job. I am college educated. I was a single parent, but you know, finding a job out there was really hard. Glacier Circle fell into my lap. When I moved in upstairs, and I was just sort of the housekeeper for the common house here, and then my part here just grew.
She's like a house mother, you know. They'll remember college days, people who are of good character and goodwill.
Most of the time everything works really smoothly. I wondered where my pills had gone. They're my ointment for my aching joints. But she knew. Next March, I'll be 100. It's not as bad as most people think. It's mainly because I live here.
There is a tremendous difference between the intergenerational co-housing and ourselves. And a lot of us feel that we kind of miss younger people. You know, in order to go to the intergenerational things, you need to make your choice early. And we did wait quite a while, till age 80.
What I would suggest that everybody has to do is really, you know, take some time to do a little deep thinking about where where you want to be and how you want to live in 10 years or 20 years, because before you know it, you know, it's going to be here, and the sooner you start kind of preparing yourself and really planning for the life that you want to have, the happier you'll be. And it's all about, you know, being happy until you're gone.
I'm not completely useless here. I'm actually glad that I'm realizing that I'm contributing something, even though I'm old. And I think one day I can be sort of an example how you age. Well, that's what I'm trying to do. And it seems it is being appreciated, I think.